we've got my brother Mark West with us today for episode 78. My name is Trevor Nelson, and thanks so much everyone for coming. Really cool stuff because we talk a lot about what's going on with fall events and things like that. But we've also learned a lot. There's been a crash course in a great way, and just a ton of learning that's come out of the last couple of years of fundraising, of course. And we saw a lot of new successes and a lot of new trends in the spring. And we wanted to share that with everybody and just go over some, what do we got here? Half a dozen topics or points or questions that I'm kind of spitfire with Mark about. And we definitely want some interaction. Y'all can use the chat feature, Q&A feature at the bottom. But we want to get some interaction. What have you learned? What were great things? We're not cynics, but what were some of the flops? Things like that. So we want to keep this as usual every week. Very interactive, tons of feedback and conversation and whatnot. But what's really cool about having Mark on is that Mark works with us and works with a ton of nonprofits by placing items, our items in their events. He also, though, has his feet on the ground at events and super, super successful events. He works with a friend of ours, a friend of HA, Scotty Gibbs, and a world-class auctioneer, of course. And Mark's been an auctioneer himself. And just like I said, his feet are on the ground, which a lot of times we don't get that opportunity, of course. Then we're working with folks all across, all 50 states. But so really great feedback coming from Mark. I'm going to take some cool notes. We're going to make sure that these points that we're making and big takeaways are going to be in the recording that we send out later on today. But really exciting, episode 78, State of the End. We're going to draw a winner for an auction item that you can use. That's a great revenue enhancer or a cool auction item, actually. Any season, for that matter. It's worked really well for a lot of folks. But I'll quit rambling, brother. Thanks for coming. How you doing?
Good. Glad to be here.
Cool, brother. We're happy to have you, man. We're happy to have you. So I'm going to start right away, actually, Mark. I'm going to go kind of big picture, and then we'll go more myopic with the points. But you did a lot of events, a ton of events in spring. What was a huge, great revelation or a huge takeaway from all those events?
Well, I'll tell you what. One of the biggest revelations for me came from something that another auctioneer said. Mm-hmm. She said that you should think of your event as a donor enrollment event.
Ooh.
So, and man, that just hit me like a ton of bricks because.
Can we give credit to that person? Can we give credit to that person?
Yeah, that was Dee Kiyosawa.
Okay, cool.
And it really changes. I think it really focuses the way that we look at our events as we're constructing them. If you will refer to your event instead of as a gala or the fundraiser or whatever within your organization, I'm not saying, when you're advertising it or promoting it, but if you will use that term in-house, I think it will open your eyes to things that you don't see before. If you think of your event as something where you're inviting people to come so that you can enroll them in your organization as a donor, for example, you won't have an outdoor event in Texas in the summertime.
Okay.
Or when it's hot. Things like that. It was about 2 days after I read that phrase. We had an event. We were working here in our area, and this was in May. So May is not bad, but they had it outdoors, and there was no shade, and it was brutal. And I'll just tell you, it affects your donors for sure.
The impression that they're having?
Well, it could stop people from coming if, it's getting close to time to leave the house and it's 95 degrees outside. But I think also once they show up and they see there's no shade, or whatever it is, that's just one example, and I'm not really picking on them, but that's the kind of thing. If when you're putting your event together, you think of it as a donor enrollment event or a donor invitation event, that can really change how you look at things and how you put things together.
Love it.
Just like another example would be, we see lots of events with buffets and people are standing in line for 20 or 30 minutes to get their food. And, that's not a great experience. And,
Sure.
and maybe you save a few dollars doing that. But if you're trying to enroll donors, if you're trying to attract donors to your organization, you need to make that donor experience as awesome as you can.
Paramount.
And I would challenge everyone to start looking at your event through that lens of a donor enrollment event.
Also, like you said, through that lens though, Mark, what's interesting is that we who was doing this? I think Amy Myers shared an example with us. We keep talking about this pretty much every week. Exactly that same thing. We haven't used that moniker donor enrollment, but it's a really cool way to look at it. But you never know when someone, tagging along to the event for the first time and has never been exposed to your mission, they buy something really cool. And now, fast forward a year, they're on your committee or they're a major donor because they bought an experience for $10,000, for instance. Like, these are real examples that have happened. And I think that's, like you said, a great lens to look at it through. We have a friend of ours, George Wooden, I think he's been on the webinar, if I'm not mistaken, said, always pay attention to your venue and your menu. And I always kind of,
oh man, yes.
Right? I mean, but these sound like very, very simple things. It's like, yeah, of course we pick out the menu. And, like Shannon said, they're at the Hyatt in Denver. Of course, they're very methodical about where they pick that out, but it's something, if you're not paying attention really closely. I was just thinking, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like a first impression that you're trying to, even if, and I think treating it that way, even if, the folks that are visiting or have been coming for the last 10 years, for instance,
yes,
have that beginner's mind, so to speak, that we're always auditioning or we're putting our best foot forward every time because you never know who's watching. And that's just kind of the world that we're living in right now too, because there's so much. There's so many people, you know what I mean? So
for sure, yeah.
I think that's great. I think that's great feedback. I didn't mean to cut you off if you have more about that, but
really no. One other thing that I saw that had a huge impact is having some sort of a match for your to use in your paddle raise or your fund a need or whatever it is you call it. If you can go out and get some sort of a match, whether it's $5,000, $10,000. We had an organization, I worked their event, and they had a $75,000 match from a foundation.
Awesome.
And we did the paddle raise, and we were at I think we were at about 60,000 when we went through all the levels. And so then they came out and announced that they had this match, and we needed another $12,000 or $15,000 to secure the entire amount. And so people just started giving again, and we ended up going over the $75,000, and they secured the entire match. But that is so important. And
that was the carrot.
Yeah, and it could be something, a smaller amount, say $5,000. You could use that at the $100 level. When you get to the $100 level of your paddle raise, that's where you could announce, we've got a $5,000 match here. We need 50 people to give $100, and and you'll see hands just start going up all over the place because everybody wants to be a part of that.
Cool.
So if at all possible, get yourself a match. Find someone who will give a matching donation, and structure your appeal so that you can take advantage of the full amount.
Well, I'm skipping the order of what we went over, with our timeline with this, but would you say that's one of the biggest takeaways that you saw from the spring, or just in general?
Oh yeah, I saw that many times,
Yep.
that announce, and you don't want to announce it right at the beginning necessarily, unless it's well, no, you could even hold it back. You go through that $100 donation, and you see what you come up with, and if you hit that, if you don't quite hit the 50, then you can make the announcement, we've got a donor that wants to give a match at this level for $5,000. We need 10 more people to give $100 to reach the whole amount. But people will give again. They'll dig in again and give, and it's just a great tool to have in your toolkit.
Cool. I think that's awesome. Okay, that's huge. We'll come back to more big takeaways and get back, but we're going to go more myopic now. And thanks,
So,
Shannon. Yeah.
Does anybody in the audience have a quick story about using a match? If you've used a match, let us know how you did it, and we'll be sure to share it with everyone.
Or any challenges or anything like that. Perfect. $100. Yep.
There you go, Shannon. Exactly what we did at the Grand Hyatt in April. We had a match of everyone who wanted to give $100. It was fabulous to draw our teachers and repeat donors. Wow, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. And Shannon's with a big school district in Colorado, so that's fantastic. Good feedback. But we have other folks that are with schools, I believe, on the webinar that will be viewing it as well. I could use that. Okay, more myopic, Mark. And I want to know what you saw were the best live auction sellers and some of the best silent auction things. And that's going to kind of fold into another topic that we want to get to.
Excuse me. Sure.
What did you see with, what's working the best? I have my own opinions about this. Obviously, that's a space that we're in. This is a good question. But yeah, well, another thing is, hey, we use a lot of, when Mark's doing events and whatnot, you're going to see a lot of our products in there because price point, you can make a lot of money with them. You can sell them multiple times because they're consigned. There's really no harm in putting them in any event for that matter, because you don't owe us anything unless they sell, things like that. So we're not trying to be biased or anything like that, but we just have a ton of experience using our own products, right? So, but also I want to hear about like some creative stuff that you saw in the live, in the silent as well, Mark, over the spring.
Yeah. So, just the biggest sellers, both in the live and the silent, were trips and experiences. That's what people really, really like. Yeah. It's not so much about things.
People don't want junk.
They don't want stuff necessarily.
Yeah.
They'll, and the best place for things like that is in the silent auction, I think. Rather than in the live,
or at all for that matter, or at all.
Yeah, experiences. That's the thing, and that's true in life as well. I mean, I know I would rather have an experience. Go somewhere, take a trip, go to a concert, a show, something like that, than given something that somebody got off Amazon. I would rather that. And I think most people are that way. When we're kids, it's all about the big, I'm gonna date myself here, but getting out the Sears wish book and looking at all the toys in there. But as you get older, it becomes about more about memories and feelings. And so anything you can find that will stimulate that in people, that's usually going to do very well. And things with broad appeal, obviously, are what you want to go for. Maybe even things that are, a broad appeal, but limited availability. Something everybody wants to go to, or everybody wants to do, but you've only got a certain number of people that can experience that. So, and maybe it's only one of an item, but those things do well. Also, I'll kind of segue into some of the biggest flops here as well. Along those things, not every experience is something that people want, and some of the events around here, they'll have box seats at the local minor league baseball team, or maybe some sort of special seating at the local college football team. And sometimes those things are just not that desirable. And part of that is because they've been in every event, for the last 5 years, and they're just worn out, so you're
talking about
not a lot of interest. So, as far as biggest flops, I would have to say, I call them repeat items, things that have been in the live auction, maybe 5, 6, 7 years in a row, and it's just run its course, and there's just very little interest left in that, and it's gone from being a really good live auction item and bringing in a lot of money to now, it just brings in, a few $100s, and it's just not worth a slot in your live auction. So, does anybody have any experience with anything like that? Or I know sometimes you get a situation where, you've got a donor who loves your organization, and every year they donate their tickets or whatever it is. And it's run its course, and so how do you handle that? What do you do with that? Maybe a suggestion I would have would be, move that item out of the live auction, and put it in a raffle. Use it as a raffle prize. But it's, and this could be, maybe it's somebody with a condo, somewhere. They donate it every year, and pretty much everybody that's interested in it has already bought it, and it's just not bringing what it used to.
Anything that's going to go stale, just be, and another thing, great feedback, Becky, appreciate that. And I think that's really, really smart, because you want to take those donations and you want to utilize them. I also want to say that I had a conversation with someone. It did not get contentious because we don't have those kinds of conversations, but I had a conversation with someone recently where they said, we were talking about live auction items, and they said, well, we have this Airbnb in Colorado, and that's really cool. And I'm sure it's awesome. And I was kind of trying to talk them out of taking it out. I was trying to talk them into taking out of the live auction, because it could only be sold once. It probably had some limitations. It had been used before, and limitations, I mean, with booking. If someone's donating their Airbnb, they're in business, right, to sell that location or that destination on Airbnb, right? So you kind of just told me everything without telling me anything, So I just don't think it was a prudent decision to put something like that in the live auction, on top of the fact that you could only sell it once. So if that was a situation where you could sell it multiple times for multiple weeks, or different 3-day periods of the year or whatnot, just be really wary of that. What was another point was just, we were putting some media together recently, Courtney and Morgan and I, and at the end of the day, people always ask us, Mark, and everyone listening, how does this work? And when we were talking about our items or in general, and I kind of went big picture, and I don't think you've seen it yet, Mark, but it's a really cool video that the girls put together. But it's like we were talking, and there's a little bit of me narrating, I guess, where I was just saying, hey, listen, this is in us intrinsically as human beings. We want to move about. We're a very nomadic people species. You know, you're talking about experiences, man, these are lifelong treasures, right? Like I still remember going to Maui for the first time with my wife. You know, it was the first vacation I ever took, and seeing, you know, fish that were colors that I had never even seen before in real life, you know, things like that. And then we were embellishing about like, hey, folks want to go to Kentucky and learn how bourbon's made and taste it and smell. Like I've never been in a distillery and smelled what it smells like, you know, with the barrels, and I haven't been to Italy and tasted the wine there while sitting at a cafe, right? So it's like those are the things that people want to do. Those are the things. And so we're talking about experiences, we're talking about access. We used to just call them trips. It's way more than that now. And another thing is, you know, we've had multiple guests on and multiple people that we're plugged in with that are friends throughout the country that are in the industry, and they're all saying the same thing. And it's not because they're being told to. It's not because we're all, you know, tossing propaganda out there. No, we all have to be on the same page. But everyone is on the same page right now. And it's about, like I said, it's about experiences. I don't think that trend that you notice in the spring is going to change for the fall. That's for sure, right? So, and then we also talk about the other stuff, you know, the stuff that is turnover, like from one year didn't sell in your silent auction, it's in someone's office. Jason talks about that.
Oh, yeah.
He knows. Hey, that's just in the corner of the office for another 364 days until the next event. Get rid of that junk. You know what I mean? Get rid of that junk.
Yeah.
So I think that's really, really good, man.
Yeah.
I think really, really good. Super good.
So we've got a couple of comments over here. Becky says they have a community member who always wants to donate their home in Tahoe. We try to put a different spin on it each year. Skiing, summer sports, pair it with Hawaii for sand and snow experience, etc., to make it seem fresh. That is great. That is very creative.
Becky is very creative. I appreciate
that's a great thing to do. If you have the opportunity to do something like that, you know, get several people together and start, you know, brainstorming things you could do to freshen it up.
And and Beverly said something about the painter. Now listen, I think it's awesome. I love art. You know what I mean? I think it's fantastic. My sister's a painter, and I've prodded her to get involved in events like this and offer her expertise. Really, really cool. But listen, the market will tell you what's going on. If it doesn't work, it didn't work. And it's nothing against the art or the painter, you know, and there's nothing wrong with the crowd and there's nothing wrong with your mission. But it is a good idea just to circulate these things and just pay attention to the market. The market will tell you everything. You know, we've been saying, don't have an agenda. Don't let someone on your committee say, oh, I'm not going to the Caribbean anytime soon because of this, that, the other thing. Well, that doesn't mean you shouldn't have a Caribbean, you know, trip in your live auction, for instance. You know what I mean? So just be open to things and open to changes. Becky's one of the most creative people that we've witnessed in putting these things together, and has had tremendous success. And I, you know, applaud Becky, and we're also imploring everyone to tear down any preconceived notions that you had, and don't, you know, let things get stale from one to the next, but be creative. You'd be very surprised. Consumers are donors and vice versa. Very well educated these days. They've got their phones. They're shopping these things on their phone. If you've got an Amazon, you know, gift basket, they can probably get it with 2 clicks of the button. You know, they don't want those things. So you got to get creative, and and it's working. So I think that's really, really cool. I love Shannon's feedback. And we've done this. We've actually, when we did some virtual events, we sell the wine from Italy as well. And with our concierge, yes, the gentleman happens to be a sommelier, and he does video tastings and things like that. And we have notes with our wine, and we pair it with experiences in Tuscany. But that's a great idea. How cool is that? I mean, the only thing, you got to let it breathe for a few hours, but, but that would be a really, really cool experience. Shannon's talking about having folks actually taste the wine and pour in the wine. Hey man, that'll get you in the ether to bid. That's for sure. You know what I mean? So
for sure. For sure.
No, I love that. I love that. It is. Yeah. Marcia, on top of that, absolutely. Very, very true. Very true.
Does anyone have any input on things that did really well for your organization in the spring? maybe there was something that surprised you. Whatever that is, we'd love to hear about it. Share with everyone else.
And we're gonna once again have some notes with some of these key bullets and stuff. I'm taking notes right now, and we just to be reminders for folks when we send out the recording. Once again, though, people do not want junk. We're hearing that. We had a buddy of ours, Dean Crown, wrote a book, a beautiful book. I believe he made mention of it in the book. He's been talking about it incessantly, and he's not wrong. He's not wrong. And he even told us, he's like, I've had people come up to me and say, I don't know, hey, life is short. People are really aware of that. Life is good. Life is really, really good, but it can be cut short. He's like, people just want to go experience things, bucket list items, stuff like that. So that's where we're at.
I was talking about flops a little bit. But okay, here's Marcia. Marcia says, two well-known designers / community leaders offered their services and lunch experience. There were no takers. Ouch.
Yeah.
That's Marcia, what kind of services were they offering?
Houston area.
Like design for the home?
And another great question, another great follow-up question. Had that been done before? Shannon, I think that's great. Absolutely. I think that, the suite at the arena for the concert. I mean, people love that kind of stuff. Another thing, piggybacking on things that we've said for a long time, they probably didn't have concerts at Ball Arena for a little while, and people were feeling like they were missing out. And now One Republic, for instance, is going to be there. Okay, cool. Adele's touring now, from what I heard, and all this stuff. And I think, and so to my point, Shannon, I was saying this because it was a really difficult time in the travel world. Thank goodness we got through it okay and all that good stuff. But there's a lot of our destinations that people couldn't even go to for a period of time. And I said, well, let's be patient, of course, which is difficult for all of us to do, myself included. But I said, when you take things away from people, they clamor for it even more. That's our psychology. It dictates that. When you take things away, especially if it was already planned or whatnot. So I think that you cannot underestimate the power of that. So get creative with those experiences. And if you can get the suite at the arena to watch the concert, that sounds fantastic. And the Rolling Stones are only going to be around for so much longer and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Minus Charlie Watts, God rest his soul, but you get my point. So, okay. And you're an expert in this space. We've done entire webinars on this, Mark. So I was kind of waiting for this one to ask you. And if it's something that you've done for decades, cool. Not trying to be contradictory to the new stuff, but nonetheless, best revenue enhancers that you've seen over the last few months.
Yeah, for sure. So, and revenue enhancers are the things that you do, kind of maybe like the third ring of the 3-ring circus, where you've got the live auction and the silent auction or the paddle raise, in another ring, and then it's all those other little things you do, the wine pools, the raffles,
golden ticket,
things like that. Golden ticket. So, absolutely, the golden ticket performs very well, but you do have to work at it. You've got to get out there and sell all those tickets, and you can't just sit at a table in the corner of the room and expect people to come over and buy all those tickets. But that's a great revenue enhancer. The by far the best revenue enhancer, besides the golden ticket, is the last champion standing. And we've actually done a full webinar on this, myself and Scotty Gibbs, and maybe Courtney can go and pull the link to that and send it out again with the email from this one.
Is this last man standing or last champion? Same thing, right? Synonymous with last man standing?
Yeah, we call it last champion standing. just, not to be, to try and be more politically correct. And really, this is, I think calling them a champion, because they are the champion of your champion of your organization. Last champion standing, last man standing. It's been called the runaround because your auctioneers run around the room, taking those donations. But you can take. I'm not kidding. You can take an item, $500-$600 item, and raise 10 times the value with the last champion revenue enhancer. It's just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Now, you might do it 2, maybe 3 years, and then take a break, because people kind of figure out how it works, and you know what, it's not for every organization necessarily. There are some organizations that have done it, and they got feedback from several of their donors, and they just didn't like it. They maybe it wasn't explained well, or whatever it was, but there are, and this is a very small minority, but most organizations have a lot of fun with it and raise a lot of money. But it's something that you need to try and keep fresh. So maybe do it 2 or 3 years, and then do something else. Take a break from it, and that's something that we recommend doing at the $100 level. Which gives pretty much everybody in the room a chance to play. But golden ticket and last champion standing, if you were only going to do 2 revenue enhancers, those would be the 2. The golden ticket, you can raise $8,000 to $10,000 if you sell all 100 of your tickets, and you're doing the $100 golden ticket. And the last champion standing, it's not unheard of to raise many times the value of whatever the prize is, and your crowd will have a lot of fun. So those 2 are big. I would say the paddle drop is another great revenue enhancer. Let's see. Let me look over here. Shannon says, in the last gala for Boulder schools before the pandemic, we did this for the first time. We purchased lottery tickets for the winner. It was new to most of the attendees, super fun. And Beverly says, last champion was amazing for us. First time we did it, everyone thought it was fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, Marsha wants to know, is there a suggested number of games to do per event? Mm-hmm. So my opinion, and I think Jason has the same opinion, is you want to limit to about 5 or 6 revenue generators, and I'll use the term generator to also include a live auction and a silent auction and a paddle raise. So you just don't want to tap people too many times at your event. Sometimes it can feel like every time they turn around, someone's asking them for money for something. Mm-hmm. So, maybe at the most, if you're doing a live auction, a silent auction, and a paddle raise, maybe add 2 or 3 revenue enhancers to your event. And that would be like the golden ticket. I would count the last champion standing as that, paddle drop, wine pool, raffles, things like that. Things that you're maybe selling tickets for. But the paddle drop is another great way to heads or tails. Thank you, Shannon. Yes, heads or tails is in there too. And, frankly, I know some organizations have a lot of success with heads or tails. To me, there's other ways you can raise more money and take up less time than playing heads or tails. But that's just me. You've got to have a prize that's got wide appeal, and you've got to have a lot of people selling those wristbands or whatever tickets, whatever you're doing, to get people involved.
Mm-hmm.
But by the same token, you want to probably, and we talked about heads or tails in our revenue enhancer webinar, but you can sell too many. You can't allow people to buy too many, and they basically buy the prize.
That's right.
So you need to figure out maybe only limit people to one or two extra buy-ins, just to keep it more fair. But I would rather use the golden ticket, last champion, or even the paddle drop as opposed to heads or tails. You're going to raise a lot more money with a lot less effort than selling $20 tickets for the heads or tails game, because I've seen some where it's like nobody wanted to play, and you end up with a handful of people at the beginning, and you may not even cover the cost of the prize.
Perfect.
But
the feedback that we've seen, and there's a trend, super fun. It needs to be fun. It needs to be interactive.
Yes.
I think make sure that that you're having a good time with it, and it gets everyone. It's super inclusive, gets everyone involved. You know what I mean? That it sounds simple, but make sure it's fun and everyone can get with it and make some noise and jump out of their chair if they need to, or what have you. It was the paddle raiser, the last champion, Marsha. We're going to put that in the notes. And then also, I wanted to just put it out there. Any questions? Mark is an expert about these revenue enhancers, among other things. But that being said, Mark's email is going to be in the recording that we send out at the end of the day. I'm going to go ahead and implore everyone, reach out to Mark if you have any questions on how to employ these ideas and these revenue enhancers. And he'll be happy to share time with you. That's kind of our fee for doing it, right? It's making ourselves. And so please don't hesitate to reach out about this if you have any questions, any event coming up, because it could really, really help. And it's really fun. I think it's kind of cool. And it kind of goes back to that opportunity to make that impression with folks like, oh, this is a fun event. These people know how to party or what have you, or it's a good time because I like the chance to raffles and stuff like that. So yeah, Beverly, what we'll do is I'll have Mark explain that to you if you like via email. I can make the connection, or Mark.
Well, I can just explain real quick, but if you watch the last champion webinar, you'll get the full details on that. So last champion is actually part of the paddle race. So you do the paddle raise, let's say you start at 5,000, you go to 1,000, 500, 250, and then $100. Well, the $100 level is where we like to play the last champion game. Mm-hmm. And it actually kind of consider that part of the paddle raise at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
good.
So.
Yeah, so if you want Mark to go into more detail, we're going to send the recording out as well. But Beverly, I can make that connection with you and Mark via email as well. So I appreciate you asking. Yeah. But it will work. It will work. I have another question. And I also have, we have some thoughts as well. I wanted to ask folks, is there anyone that did an event in the spring where they did not use bidding software? Mobile bidding software, have an auction website, things like that? Give us any feedback. Or if everyone did, fantastic. Did anyone not use it? Because I was going to say one big takeaway that you should be thinking about before your next event. And this has no agenda. This is no agenda of ours, is to implore the use of mobile bidding software and auction technology at your event. It's just working too well. There's too much data to pull from it. It's a great way to see what new donors you enrolled, right, at the event, and buying tendencies and patterns and ticketing and all these things. So much involved. So that was something that was a huge takeaway for us, of course, and it is in perpetuity moving forward because of where the world is and giving folks access to your event that might not even be there as well. But Mark, and you can piggyback on that if you like and embellish on that, but biggest takeaway, and definitely what folks should be taking with them moving forward and planning for this fall or next spring. Can you give me a crescendo?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think I could say it in 3 words: the donor experience.
Good. Cool.
That's what you need to be thinking about going into your next event. That's what you need to be focusing on. It goes back to that, thinking of your gala or your fundraiser as a donor enrollment event. If you will constantly ask yourself, how does, whatever we're deciding on today affect the donor experience? Because if your donors have a great experience at your event, they're going to be happy, they're going to give more, and they're going to become even bigger champions of your organization and your mission. So yes, absolutely, mobile bidding software can greatly enhance the donor experience. I know there's some fear about some donors not being able to navigate it properly. That's where you have people at your event who are trained on the software, who can help those people bid on the things they want and do the things they want. That's very key. Beverly says, yes, mobile bidding really opens the gates. We had a winner who was vacationing in Mexico during our event.
Yeah,
absolutely. Move if you're doing a silent auction, move it online. Let people outside the walls of your event bid on those items. The people at your event, they can bid from their table. They don't have to get up and keep running back, to wherever the silent auction is. And they're going to get notifications. And then, like Trevor said, the data that you're going to get about your event and who's giving and who's buying what, that is gold for you. That is stuff that you can use going forward to your next event. Shannon says, tiny problem about bidding on physical and turning non-attendees to bid on mobile bidding and then having to get the item physically to them. Yes, so that you've got to work that out. Absolutely.
Maybe make alcohol items like that, like you got multiple bottles in a basket, maybe you made a margarita basket or whatnot. Maybe only make that available to folks in attendance that can leave with it. We use a lot of wine, and we have specific details. The shipment arrives at your doorstep within 30 days of the event, stuff like that. So the devil's going to be in the details, a lot of that stuff. But you're not wrong, Shannon. That can get real tricky. But a lot of stuff. Let's say you have a signed jersey or whatnot that could be in the silent / online. Those are typically shippable. Obviously, we know a lot of providers that do that. But yeah, it's just being obviously upfront with the donors, but just making sure it's a win-win for them. And
if you don't want to ship, you can put that in your terms. Hey, we're not going to ship. You're going to have to come here and pick it up.
We usually build that in, Marcia, as well. If there's any shipping costs, we'll usually just build that into the cost of the item itself. That way the organization is not paying that bill, because there can be returns. I've heard all sorts of crazy stories, not with our products, because we don't really do a lot of like memorabilia and things like that. We have partners that do that, but there's all sorts of answers, and is just building it in is the best way that we've seen doing that. Sandra had a quick question about recording. Absolutely. Sandra, we send out a recording of every single webinar. So if you just simply register, you'll always get the recording. And then we have a whole catalog of these recordings that will be on YouTube. They get sent out in emails to all of our clients and all of our viewers. So yeah, good stuff.
But and you know, back to the mobile bidding software. You know, if you're not using it, you need to look into that. We have seen organizations that when they make the move to mobile bidding, their revenue increases 30% from that silent auction, because people can start bidding before the doors open. People who are not there can bid on things. And people don't have to run back and forth from their table or whatever they're doing. They can bid right there on their phone.
Yep.
But
Shannon said, great point, Shannon. Train your donors how to use max bid, and then also that lends credibility to just being very deliberate with your bidding increments. If you've got a $5,000 online or silent auction item to Iceland, let's not have the bidding increments at $50, right? So be very deliberate with that, is what we've seen, and just working with different organizations and coaching them up on that. I think that's huge. But these are all things you want to be very, very careful about in your area. We're not giving legal advice or anything, but yeah, be very deliberate with the alcohol thing and the shipments and all that good stuff. And, you know, even we have restrictions like New Hampshire or Delaware, and when it comes to our wine, and we've had to pull it out of events and at certain times, just being very, very careful, always crossing your T's and dotting your lowercase J's when it comes to that kind of stuff. So
I see we're getting close, but I would also like to say, when you're looking at your next event, moving into your next event, less is often more.
Yep. Cool.
You can overload your event with revenue enhancers, with things that don't bring in any money at all. You know, think about people's time. Once again, going back to the donor experience, most people don't want to go to an event that's going to last 4 or 5 hours. They want to get in and out. They want to get back home to the kids or whatever it is they want to do. So keep that in mind. You need to really remember less is more. So, you know, if you've got a bunch of stuff happening, you know, before the silent auction and the live auction starts, just realize you've got a limited amount of time that people are going to hang around. And always remember that golden hour of fundraising. You know, you've got a limited amount of time to get money from people. That said, I'll also...
all these trends that we're talking about with donors and consumers right now, we didn't mention the attention spans, right?
Yeah.
So that's
attention huge. Spans. Yeah, definitely. I'll say, I guess the final thing is along the lines of less is often more. I saw an organization that that I have been to their event 2 or 3 times. And it's always been a 400 or 500 person event, you know, black tie, you know, big ballroom in a hotel, wonderful meals, lots of live auction items, but a huge event. So this past spring, it was their first time having a live event again. And they decided they were going to scale it way back. They only had 180 people in the room. They didn't even have a live auction. And they raised right about as much money as they did when they had 500 people in the room.
Wow.
And the you know, had the live and the silent auction. So I'm not saying that's going to work for every organization, but you know, that blew my mind because they had used our golden ticket. So that, and I was not at the event this year, but a friend of mine was the auctioneer, if you will, and she did their paddle raise. They didn't have stuff. They didn't have any stuff other than the golden ticket and the paddle raise, and they raised I want to say it was like $300,000, and that's about what they raised when they had 500 people in the room with all that other stuff. So, you know, if you're running an event, and this is something that the mobile bidding software will help you with. If you're running an event with hundreds and hundreds of people, you can see how many of those people are actually bidding on stuff and contributing there in the room. And you know, maybe you'd be better off cutting back. So just something to think about there.
Love that. Yeah, I love that less is more. With messaging, with posting, with anything, I'm always less is more, less is more. I think that's fantastic. Yeah, and be deliberate, right? That's the idea. That's the whole idea.
Be intentional.
Exactly. Love that. I love that. Any other feedback, any last minute questions while we got Mark? I'm so thankful that he was on doing this. Marcia said she was a ringman for an event. The organization had 2 nights for their annual fundraiser, each had about 350 to 400 versus having one room, which is harder to manage. Oh, interesting. Yeah, interesting.
I sure wouldn't want to do that. Have 2 events.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, answer Shannon's question while we still have time, and then I'm going to announce a winner. And any last minute questions, do me that favor, brother. And then any last minute questions, we'll get to those as well.
Okay. Yeah, you know,
I was talking about that earlier. Yeah, it's like being sensitive to that person. Like, no, this has to go in the live auction or I won't give it to you. It's like, man, they don't have the right outlook if that's the case. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, you know, you just have to be, you know, very, very, very gentle, but you have to be frank with them and just let them know, you know, that, you know, maybe you can say something like, you know, we've, you know, explain to them why it's not going to sell well, why it's not going to bring what they want it to bring, and you know, turn it around and make it more about them. Mm-hmm. You know, that you know, you don't want them to be hurt or embarrassed, you know, if the item doesn't do well, and you just know from past experience that type of item that does not do well with your organization. Yeah, but that you're very appreciative of their generosity, and you have to leave it with them knowing that you're saying no. You know, thank you. Yeah,
don't leave anything out.
Make that clear.
We always say this as a rule in our company: no means no for right now. That's really okay. If I tell you no to something, that typically, and especially in this case, does not mean no forever. And we can look at it next year, or we'll have other opportunities. Or once again, maybe it's a way to force someone to sharpen the pencil, so to speak, and get creative to use it somewhere else, or once again in the future. But no does not typically mean no forever. So that doesn't mean you have to talk to the donors like children, but that's what I say. But
now there's one other way around this, and we talked about it in our revenue enhancer webinar, and that's to make the item a secret bid item.
Oh.
And you know, if it's a donor that is very important to the organization, and you're just not sure what that item is going to do, you can make it a secret bid item. You know, put it on its own table, make a very nice box. You know, wrap it in beautiful wrapping paper or something with a slit in the top, and let people write down their bids on pieces of paper with their bid number on it, and then they put that inside the box. And then at some point during the event, you go or someone from the organization goes and collects the box and goes through there, and the person with the highest bid wins. But if nobody bids, no one's going to know that except the person who opens the box. So the donor's not going to be embarrassed. You can set a minimum on it if you want to, and sometimes you hit a home run with it, because the thing that makes it fun is that nobody knows what other people are bidding. Nobody knows what other people are writing down. So you if you really want it, you better put a good number down. That's another way around it, and we've used that before in the past, when the organization really didn't want to say no to someone, but they just weren't sure how that item was going to do. That's what we did with it, and it turned out well.
There's always an answer. That's why you're here, brother, and I'm thankful for it. I hope everyone else is thankful for it too. Yeah. Really cool, man. I love that. Yeah, it's tough. That's a tough situation. It's a very sensitive situation. Absolutely. So
no, hey, Beverly, they know what it is that they're bidding on. You've got it, or maybe a poster or something that lets people know what it is. Mm-hmm. And then maybe you're just using a high top table, but you set it apart, you make it a little special, and so people are writing down what they would bid for that piece of art or that piece of jewelry or whatever it is. So that they definitely know what they're bidding on. They just don't know if anyone else is bidding at all or what other people are bidding.
I love that, man. That's really cool. That's good feedback.
And I'll give Janelle Taylor credit for that. She's the one that taught me about that.
Well, she's a smart cookie.
She is.
Hey, everyone. Awesome. From where you're at, please give Mark West a round of applause, because that was fantastic. We're going to get all these notes out to you. Really thankful, brother. Thank you so much. A couple things. We have a winner, and we're going to send you this auction item that you can use. It could be a revenue enhancer. You could put it in the online, whatever you want to do with it. But Velda Schalk, you are the winner of the auction item this week. So congratulations.
All right.
Thank you so much for attending. I really, really appreciate it. And do us a favor, everybody. We're going to have episode 79 next week, next Thursday. Tell a friend, tell someone in your network, tell a loved one, tell a neighbor about it. And we'll get all the invites out next week, and we'll get a recording of this webinar out probably later on today with all the notes and some other recordings. And we're going to make Mark available to you as well. And the number one podcast probably in the world, in the nonprofit world. Be careful what you say, right? In the nonprofit world, the number one podcast is Hey Nonprofits Raise More Money. So check that out as well. Do us that favor and download those podcasts. We're really, really pumped about those and putting out 1 or 2 of those a week. So thanks a ton, everyone. Great to see new faces, new names, and old ones alike. And y'all have a great Thursday afternoon. Mark, love you, brother. Thank you so much, man. That was fantastic.
All right.
And really, really cool. We'll talk to you all very, very soon.
Thanks so much. Take care.